This is the Business of Apps podcast, bringing you actionable insights from the leaders of the global app industry and the world's fastest growing apps. You can find more app news, data and analysis over at businessofapps.com.
Welcome to the Business of Apps podcast. On this show, we invite app industry professionals to cover various topics, and we promise to do our best to keep it both insightful but brief. If you haven't subscribed to our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or other podcast platforms where you can find us, I strongly encourage you to do that. Once you subscribe, you will be getting episodes of this show on your device as soon as it's available. In this episode, we have Sherina Khalidi, VP Performance Marketing at Deezer. Sherina, welcome to the Business of Apps podcast.
Thank you, Art. Thank you. I'm super glad to be here.
Great. Thank you for coming. Okay, as always, I'm going to set up the stage first. A bit of a trivia to begin with. What is the most common and most used word app marketers and app owners use in a conversation about their apps in pretty much any country you can think of? Well, if they have a conversation in English, that word would be growth. It's that notion that everybody agrees is extremely important for a mobile app project to succeed. There is a set of app growth marketing techniques we all have heard about, tried ourselves, and hopefully benefit from using. But because mobile apps audiences are different, we know that all these techniques aren't expected to be equally efficient for everybody. And so it's always wise to listen to other app marketers' experiences to learn something new. In this episode, Sherina will share her experience with the Deezer's apps growth strategy. But first, Sherina, let's begin with talking about you. Please tell us about yourself.
Thank you, Art. My name is Sherina Khalidi. I'm VP Performance Marketing at Deezer. I joined Deezer almost 9 years ago, so it's a long time ago. But actually, I started around 2005, so even longer time ago, in performance marketing, and what was really the birth of performance marketing. I worked in media agencies back then, and really focused on reaching return on investment for advertisers. So that's really where I am. That's really my DNA. My core expertise is performance. I also worked in the gaming industry, not the mobile gaming industry, but just the traditional consoles and PC gaming industry, where I actually learned about raising pre-awareness, making an event out of a game launch, which is key in this industry if you want to succeed. So it was like really interesting for me to have this mix of seeing both worlds, the world of instant ROI and the world of retail, mostly about investing first and then get the results afterwards. After that, I joined Deezer a little bit out of coincidence. It was not really a plan for me. I was really surprised to see how much I love the tech industry. And I was really focused on acquisition. So I started working on launching acquisition campaign in Germany and then the UK. And I climbed the ladder until today.
Gotcha. So the next year you will be celebrating 20 years in performance marketing overall.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That doesn't make me younger, but
No, we're not going to infer the age. We're going to say just 20 years, just the number. Yeah, it's been a while, and it's interesting that you actually caught the period pre-mobile, when games used to be not in your phone, it has nothing to do with your phone, were console gaming. And nobody knew that things will be that drastically different just in a few years. Right now, we're talking about games, and immediately we see a phone in your mind's eye when you're thinking about games. Right now, it's like the first thing that pops up when you think about pretty much any game. It's either a tablet or phone. Still can be a desktop, but phone is the closest to you.
And IPs were really everything back then. If you didn't have an IP, you had almost It was really, really complicated to get through it if you didn't have a strong IP to start with.
Yeah, I think I can remember the talking points of Steve Jobs at the presentation of the App Store back in 2008 when he was talking about the apps and the obviously games were really important to begin with, and those like the difference between the world before the App Store and after, like how much money you have to pay for a copy of a game before the invent of the iPhone and after, and what those changes implicated ultimately. Tell me about Deezer, what it does, and who are your users?
So Deezer is a French music streaming service where our product is actually available everywhere. We're French in the sense that the company started in 2007, based in Paris. So it's our competitors are huge. We are a challenger everywhere outside of France. In France, we are leader. We are fighting against mainly GAFA and Spotify. So it's super challenging. It's super interesting for me as well. What we do mostly is really to connect fans and artists. And our mission is also to create ways for our users to live the music. Yeah, our users are, I would say anyone. Music streaming, it appeals to everyone. So we don't have a very precise core target audience. And yeah, it starts at 15 years old and it ends at like 95 years old.
So you're mostly focused on France, or just French-speaking audience, or basically anybody, but the core audience is still in France?
No, actually, we are like where we are the strongest is in France, indeed, but we are also very strong in Latin America, and we are a challenger everywhere else. So we do have users almost everywhere around the globe.
Got you. All right. So now my first question on the topic on the table today will be this. What user acquisition strategies have proven most effective for Deezer, and how have they evolved over time? So what has been working right now for you guys, and how's it different for what was working before?
So actually, our strategy evolved really with our tracking capacities and with regulations as well. So we started our first KPI, I would say, was cost per registered back in 2015 when I joined. It made sense. Our product, well, our industry was not super mature, and so we were trying to really drive users, mostly free users, actually, hoping that they would become paying users. So we were really based on a cost per register. Then as our tracking capabilities, they matured, we had more possibilities. So we went down into the funnel, and we evolved in like just before COVID, we worked on a KPI of cost per lead. So, after the people who launched a paying trial, basically.
Yeah.
And after COVID, we went further than that with building our KPI of LTV SAC. So forecasted lifetime value over sub-acquisition costs to go deeper into really fine-tuning our profitability. That was the main objective. So based on that, there are, I would say, 4 pillars that really make the change for us, like change the game. The first one is really on innovation, and it's a strategy that we've always had and that always paid. It was really, and it still is, to test everything we can, like everything, testing the new partners, testing the new placement before everybody else. That makes a huge difference. So back in the days, we were the first ones to test Google UAC, for instance. We were the first ones to build an App Store optimization strategy, an ASO strategy, back in 2016. So really, when it was the start of the field, we were also the first one to test performance campaigns on TikTok. I think outside of gaming, because gaming is usually more mature than consumer apps.
Yeah.
And even last year, we were also among the first to test turning our Google campaigns towards target on return on ad spend, TROAS. And that's why really for me, everything is about innovating. And in user acquisition, especially, there is no good old recipe that will always work, because you're playing with your users' media consumption on top of your competitors' activity. So you got to be the first to test things. The second pillar is really creative. Beyond media buy and the way you set up your campaign and the target that you set, actually, what will make your campaign succeed is really creative. So we always we have at heart to develop assets that are truly tailored to the media that we select. We try to be as native and creative as possible. A third important element for us that we found an answer to is really targeting. We target broad. That's something that surprised a lot of our peers, basically, because as our product appeals to everyone, even though we do have a core target audience, obviously, when we want to target more precisely, the media costs increase, and in the end, we don't get the ROI that we wanted. So we target broadly. And just to finish, data is a word for everything. Like data it's a basic. You have to send as clean data as possible to fit the algorithm. And this is something that we keep working on all the time.
Yeah, I can only imagine how challenging is it for you guys to compete on the market where for many app developers, there aren't that big competitor from the platform itself. In your case, it's Apple Music from Apple. Like people are getting a phone with an app that is right there on the device to listen music. And there is a Spotify, of course. So you have to be on your toes all the time to keep innovating and gaining your market, luring people to your platform, proving that you guys are better, you deliver a better experience. Because people love music, but then there are details how what features of the app, what features of the platform make them more appealing as compared to your competitors. So that's hard work. And you always had this spirit of a big company, but the underdog, because you're trying to grab the market to you and just increase your user base. You mentioned data. So how does Deezer leverage data and analytics to inform its marketing decisions to drive app growth?
So obviously, everything we do relies on data. So there are two sides of it. For our overarching marketing strategy, it's really all about knowing our user. So to do so, we do not use only our internal data. We also use a lot of quantitative and qualitative studies. So basically market research. It's really key for us. As we believe that if we don't know our user, like nothing will be possible anyway. On acquisition, if we look purely and solely at acquisition, we do have this triptych that we're trying to work with, this triptych of having attribution that allows you to do some daily monitoring, the MMM, which usually helps us validate our assumption afterwards. But
MMPs, yeah.
Yeah, impossible to monitor anything, and it doesn't give you that much insight. It just basically validates what you already knew. But that's at least my feeling on MMM. And incremental tests. And incremental test is a whole other game. You multiply the testings, you get tons of insights out of it, and then you have to do a synthesis. So we really need to develop more on the ladder on incrementality testing. I believe that's where we need to be better at as of 2024. And among my crazy ideas, I was thinking about AI and how it could help us measure, the marketing efficiency. And one of my crazy idea would be to have an AI solution that would bring those three together and deliver me, a synthesis based on this, really deliver me with prediction. If I invest that much here, what will it get me?
Gotcha. Yeah, this AI is always on the minds of all of us, and not only app marketers, but just regular folks anywhere. Speaking of users and attracting users to use your app, we all know that there's this problem that unfortunately I don't think like is going to anywhere anytime soon, which is users churn. People stop using the app, and there's it's not like a problem that can go anywhere anytime soon because it's just human psyche. It's how we live our lives. Many unpredictable factors. People are dealing on so many things on a daily basis, and so many things can distract them, can switch their attention, they can change their habits. It's just impossible to predict like what is actually the field you're competing with in terms of information flow. So what do you guys do to retain users to continue to use the Deezer app?
So the churn rate is indeed a big concern for us. We know that if you compare churn in the music streaming industry versus other apps, we do have a very low churn. All of us, like that's a reality, because our apps are really sticky. You start creating your playlist, you're into it. It's not so easy to change music app. And we are not so many. Like there's a limited amount of choice that you have. However, churn remains something that we definitely need to work on to improve our business, basically, and especially as we see in some markets and mainly in Latin America, users usually have several music streaming apps on their phones. So retention is really at the heart of our focus. So what we do on our end, it's not so much really tactics. It's really about more of a retention strategy. That's related to music. We really believe that if we manage to offer fun experience to our users, they will we will retain them better. So we're working on that. It's a lot of initiatives, some that are still work in progress and that I cannot disclose of. But if you look at what we do this year, you will see that we organize what we call purple doors, that are special events for our biggest for the biggest fans of a certain artist. We manage really to create an event that is centered around the artist and that will indeed create a new way for users to live their music. That's the whole idea. Maybe on a more concrete, like more actionable item, we have an amazing CRM team who is working on automation, but rather than getting closer to the user life cycle, they're working on getting closer to the user music cycle. So again, it's really more about the music rather than just making our users stick to our product just for the sake of our business. And we, on top of it, we add action-based triggers to be more personalized than ever. That's really the way we work on retention.
Yeah, you mentioned that there's one of the things you have to always keep in mind, people have multiple apps for listening music on their phones. It immediately brought to my mind the picture with the video streaming. People may Hulu app, Netflix, Amazon Prime, and they're making their choice between different shows. And it's kind of the same problem, but on the musical landscape, not the video movies and TV shows, but the most common way of competing on that landscape of movies, companies began using just their own production capacities to financing production of TV shows and movies themselves. This is how Netflix ultimately took the #1 spot, did not just retaining it no matter what by creating really good content themselves, giving people exclusive reason to be on that platform. So in your case, you can work with the artists, right, to create some unique events that people will be experiencing only on Deezer, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, it's more tricky for us if you compare to video streaming because all music streaming apps have the same catalog. So differentiation doesn't really come from the content. It's much more complicated than that. One of the key elements of differentiation that we have is actually a personalization feature that we've developed like years ago. Personalization is really a focus for Deezer since forever. We developed a feature that is called Flow. That's basically an algorithm providing you with the right mix of discovery and tracks that you already know based on your history. And that really self-updates, obviously. Based on this AI, we developed different versions of it. And now we even have flow moods. So you can come with your own mood and ask for Flow to give you the tracks that will go with your mood of the day, of the moment. All of this based on AI.
Yeah, so personalization for you has even more like I could ask a question about personalization to a developer from any app, but in many cases that will be limited to how much information people have, name, age, certain habits. But we're talking about music, which is very emotional, which is about listening specific music when you have a specific mood, and it's fluent, and you feel like depends on what you're doing. You may have listen. You may want to listen to music, something in the background when you do some work, or you want to just relax and trying to shut off yourself from the world, listening to something you really love, or have a party, and that music taste is really fluent. And this is a great way of connecting with your users and personalize the experience this way, delivering them the music they need at that very moment, right?
Exactly.
Can you share any examples of partnership and collaborations that significantly contributed to Deezer's app growth? Because it's one of the best tactics of marketing. If you can strike a good partnership and collaborate with some other brand and tap in that big audience, introduce your brand through the lens of that other brand people do trust too. Can be influencer marketing, can be traditional big brands collaboration. So have you guys been involved in these collaborations?
So yeah, actually, building partnerships is really part of Deezer's DNA. It's how Deezer became Deezer. Basically, if we go back to the start, so at the very early stage for this startup, we built a B2B partnership with Orange in France, so which is a #1 telco, historical telco as well. And this is what made us the leaders that we are today on this market. There's absolutely no mystery on that. It's also part of our DNA, and more than that, we believe that this is our key differentiator on the market. We are the music streaming service that can build a B2B partnership with brands, bringing them our tech and also our close relationships with the labels. Because if you look at our competitors, it's not really something that they can do or that they want to do. So this is really something on which we capitalize strongly. So we started with Orange. We built a deal with RTL in Germany. Also, we have more recently we launched a huge deal with Mercado Libre in Latin America. And that's just to name a few. Like we have deals with brands around the globe. And yeah, we really believe that building solid and value-adding partnership is what will make us different as well.
Yeah, this is great. This is partnership, strategic partnership thinking in action. When you go to a new market, the best way to reach out a huge audience through the mobile operator in that market, because there you basically you don't need to build the extra channel to reach out to all those people. They already trust that brand. You just need to make sure you have something to bring on the table and show the value of your brand and strike a partnership and everybody are happy.
Yeah. And so that's the biggest deal that we have, the actual really very strong B2B deals. But the partnership mindset is everywhere actually at Deezer. So in acquisition, we have lots of B2C partners that really help us get excellent user acquisition. So maybe for your audience, if I had one advice is
Sure.
on acquisition, building partnerships with affiliates, with display partners is it's really a massive asset. Like do not only rely on Google and Meta and TikTok, because yes, these are like really vital partners for you, but you need also to add some other partners, maybe smaller size, but really wanting to do the extra mile with you to reach both volume and profitability.
Right. Diversify your channels of user acquisition. Do not rely on big guys because they're not going to stay big forever. Things
Yeah.
change over time.
Yeah, no, and it's really interesting also to diversify the way you acquire your users, because you do reach an audience that you don't usually reach, or you reach them in a very different way than what you can do on usual channels.
Exactly. Now, let's take a quick look into the future if we can. What emerging trends and technologies do you guys believe will have the biggest impact on app growth strategies in the next few years? And how Deezer is preparing for them? You mentioned AI at the beginning. I suppose it's part of the answer, right?
Yeah, that's the buzzword, right? It's AI.
Yeah.
So AI, we already started working with it like since day one on AI, since before we called it AI. It's a big buzzword, but I don't think it's for nothing. Our job as marketers will evolve, and we need to be on it like right now. We don't like, let's not wait because I think as businesses, if we wait to hop on once we think that it's ready, we'll just miss the train basically. But besides AI, which is I think a massive earthquake for all marketing and not just for apps and not just for acquisition. The other trend, if we can call it that way, I think that will shape our future is really on the side of regulations. Like it feels like you have a new regulation every year coming from EU mainly,
Yeah.
leading
I
the trend,
was
but
going to
not
say
only.
EU, right?
Yeah, totally. What we can see on the side of regulation, at least for EU, if I may comment a little bit on that, is that I understand their intentions are good. I think they are really, what they're trying to do is really to help European businesses basically through regulation and protect users. So on that, I have no doubt. So intentions are good, but somehow the way the legislators think their new bills and their new laws is kind of always missing the point or always missing the goal. And in the end, it makes things more complicated for European businesses and not that much, for the businesses that were actually targeted by it. I don't know if you have a point on that.
Yeah, that's a very fair point. There's a, if I remember correctly, the joke that folks in Silicon Valley are great in software, in China great in hardware, but guys in UK, in European Union do laws.
Yeah.
So if you need a regulation, look at the Europe. And I think it's just inevitable that new regulations will bring some discomfort to the industry, no matter how hard people are trying to, respect both sides, consumer and business, and make sure that business will respect the privacy, the data regulation rules towards consumers. And on the other hand, it will not will not limit its growth. If you look at Silicon Valley, they've been flying untethered for years and years. And now, many companies are catch up with the consequences of that free fly without any regulations. So it's just great that there's regulations out there, and I completely hear you when you're saying that they're making life harder for small companies, because big corporations are always great in having the right team of people to deal with regulations and be quick within their implementation. For small guys, it's not that easy. So right now, it's obviously on the agenda how quickly we can introduce regulation to make sure that intellectual property for music is respected. It's a huge thing for so many brands, so many record labels. Just like, movies, probably a little bit safer at this point, but music and text, obviously.
There must be a kind of a balance between, European philosophy, which is more like, let's do nothing, be cautious, because we can break something, and the US philosophy, which is more, okay, just let's do stuff, and we see afterwards what we do with that. There must be a balance somewhere to find. On the emerging trends and technology, if I may add one last point, maybe.
Sure.
It's really, which I find super interesting to see. It's that mobile, like it's an industry that is getting mature. And for the upcoming years, I'm really like, okay, let's see what it will mean for us. What I foresee, and obviously I don't have a crystal ball, so maybe I'm completely out of the prediction, but I think more and more as mobile is maturing, it won't be just about UA and ASO anymore. The old recipes of how you launch an app, how you drive UA. Eventually, it's gonna be less and less efficient. That's my feeling about it. I think as mobile industry is maturing, it will be more and more brands building an IP, building a brand that managed to actually build a relationship with their users in both trust and authenticity. I think that's really something to reinvent here with our users' behaviors and the way they don't perceive old school brands the same way as they did before. Like they really look for more proximity and more authenticity. And I believe that at some point, this is what's going to make the difference on the world of apps.
Of course, yeah, that's a great point. You have to remember about the Gen Z and the next generation, because we're talking about the problems, the solutions we are dealing with our generations, but the consumer pool is moving towards that generation. They are consumers right now and will be more and more dominating the space of consumers around the globe. And they definitely, their relationship with brands is not even close as it used to be. I've heard so many polls that are basically whole delivering the same message that people, just like you're saying, authenticity, what is in for me is in the first place. And it's not a brand for the sake of a brand, like somebody is suggesting to me, like, I don't know, Pierce Brosnan or Daniel Craig is wearing that watch and I need that watch for myself. It's more like what exactly this product, this service delivers for me, how good it is and how authentic it is. Like, can I trust that brand? You can add how environmental conscious that brand. It's another dimension. So yeah, things do change in the brand space very much. Sherina, from the height of your almost 20 years of experience in performance marketing, what would you like to change about this landscape the most?
I started in web. You said it at the beginning. So before mobile, I think what I missed most is the open business world that you had on web. Less and less today, even on web, but
Yeah.
the fact that the world of apps is like we are in walled gardens, we are in a closed environment. You're not as free to do whatever you want as you were on web. I think this is what I would change would be that, like, more freedom, more openness, if that would be possible.
Yeah, I definitely hear you. I every once in a while I do recall those times before the big dominance of huge platforms we all know these days, where the whole internet was decentralized and so many new ideas could basically grow and flourish because they were not limited with one big dominant player. And we were living in the world where somebody launching his online business have to go to Meta, Alphabet, and now TikTok. Like few gatekeepers, and you have to
Yeah.
deal with them. You cannot bypass them by anyhow. You just have to deal with them. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's my nostalgia moment. I was a teenager when the internet like came basically on
yeah,
in the households, and I have I felt like it was so much full of opportunities. Like I really felt like it would change the world, and
yeah.
20
And then it
years
happened.
after, yeah, then it's just we end up in the same landscape as it was before. If you
Full circle, right? All right, so we're just finished at the first part of the show, and because you're the newcomer, the first time on the show, there are a few quick questions that I ask every newcomer, just to build kind of a quick portrait of that person for my audience. So, what smartphone do you have now? Have you been switching between these two giants or staying one camp all the time?
I'm Android. I have a Sony Xperia.
Got you. Now, what was your first mobile phone, before the era of smartphones?
Nokia 3210.
Got you. All right. Um, uh, Back to present. So imagine you left your home and for whatever reason you forgot your phone inside. So you're out. What is the most missing feature for you?
My camera. I need to take pictures.
Um, Now, looking at your phone, if you can think about it, what is the most missing feature, hardware, or software, specifically for you? Let's just forget for sake of this question about anything trendy, flashy, but what would make it a better tool for you personally?
I would say a collection app, to collect moments and stuff.
All right, before I let you go, very, very final question. How can people get in touch with you and get more information about what you do?
Through LinkedIn. It's really the best way to reach me.
Okay, great. Sherina, thank you so much for spending your time with us and coming on the show.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that was Sherina Khalidi, VP Performance Marketing at Deezer. To listen to more episodes, subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts. Just search for Business of Apps and you will find us easily. Remember, we release episodes on Mondays. So subscribe and you will be getting the new episodes of this show on your smartphone, tablet, or computer as soon as we release them. And please, don't forget to leave us a review or comment on iTunes. It is highly appreciated. And our episodes will also be available on businessofapps.com. Thank you for listening. See you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Business of Apps podcast. For more, head on over to businessofapps.com.